Service Center, here to show you a walkthrough on this Durango fifth wheel. This walkthrough is going to go over a lot of the basics that you're going to find in many of the other RVs out there. So your Durango might not look exactly like this. It's going to have a lot of the same features, and I'll show you how to use all the appliances, some safety stuff, and some maintenance upkeep. So just keep in mind that not everything's going to be exactly in the same position, especially for like the battery compartment, water heater, furnace, stuff like that. It's just going to have different locations on each unit, but they all do operate the same. So start up here. The battery, it does come with one 12-volt deep cycle battery. You can always add more if you wanted to. This one just has a compartment for one, but you can always add more down the line if you want to do a lot more dry camping where you're running off of battery power only. You do want to check the water levels on them from time to time, just a few times a year. If you pop these caps up, if you notice the water in it looks low, add distilled water only. Never add tap water. This unit just has two connections, one red for your positive, one black for your negative. Some might have two positives, two negatives, depending on how they have the slides being wired. And this one just has two. It does have a battery disconnect switch right above it. Now you only want to use that when you're done using the unit, like when you're storing it, keeping it at home, or you're not going to be using it for a long time. All you do is just flip it to the off position and it disconnects the battery from the system. But since the battery is disconnected from the system right now, if you were to plug this in to try to charge it, the battery won't be getting a charge because the battery is isolated from the system. So you want to make sure this is in the on position. So when you're plugged into an outlet, your battery does get a charge off your converter, but also during traveling, your battery will be getting a charge off of the alternator from your vehicle. So you do want to make sure that the battery disconnect switch is always in the on position whenever you are using or moving the RV. Also in this compartment, again, this is going to be different depending on your RV, but there's always a way to manually extend and raise your landing gear on the front. If for some reason your battery is dead or the switch isn't working and you really need to just lift it up and down to be able to hook it to your vehicle, you can use a wrench, and this one is directly above it where the wrench will sit in the position. You can crank it up and down to be able to raise or lower the fifth wheel. Some are on the other side. Some of them are actually on the motors themselves. They're all different, so you want to check with the owner's manual to see which model you have and which way to manually operate it. But on this model, it is directly above the battery compartment. When you are connected to your vehicle, you do want to make sure that you also have your breakaway switch connected. That's this little loop here. You want to make sure it's physically connected somewhere on the vehicle, either like a hook in your truck bed, or get like a carabiner or something to attach it to the rails of your fifth wheel hitch to make sure it is secure. This is just a safety device. If for some reason the kingpin were to become dislodged from the vehicle and come off of the truck, this pin would pull and engages the brakes on the trailer. When that happens, it'll come to a stop. You do want to make sure you have a good charged battery on the RV so it does come to a stop. If you didn't have a battery connected, it's not going to do any good. But you don't want to use this as a parking brake. This is just a safety device. If you do pull this out, just make sure to put it back in within a few minutes. Don't leave it out because it will melt this box and it can damage your brakes as well. Talk about your propane here. Most of the fifth wheels are going to come with 30-pound cylinders, but it is possible to have 20 pounds. So with two 30-pound cylinders and they're filled up, there's 60 pounds of propane. They're all going to be connected to an automatic switch regulator. What it'll do is it'll actually draw from one side. Once the side gets empty, it'll automatically draw it to the other. For that to work though, you do want to make sure both propane tanks are open. And as you can see, the regulator right now does indicate that it's red. It's letting you know there's no pressure going to the system. So when you open up cylinders, it'll quickly disappear. And now it's clear, letting you know it does have pressure. This little indicator can point towards either side. Right now it's pointed to the right, which will make that your primary tank. It'll draw from this tank. When it gets empty, it'll automatically switch to draw from this side. When that happens, this will go back to red to let you know there's no pressure coming from this tank. It'll still be drawing from this tank and everything inside will still be working. So in the meantime, you just flip this to point towards the secondary tank. Close this, disconnect it, go get it filled, put it back on, open it back up, let it draw from this tank, and then it'll automatically switch to that side. So periodically you want to keep an eye on this. Being 30-pound cylinders, they can last you a long time, really depending on what you're using. If you're cold weather camping using your furnace a lot, they will deplete a lot quicker. But this one does have the fireplace in the side, so it'll help keep more propane in the system. You can use your electric heat. But you just want to keep an eye on that. Whenever it turns red, just let you know that that cylinder is empty. You need to get it filled. This right here is what they call the wet bay. It's where you have your water connections. Everything water-wise is going to be done here. You have two options. You can use your city water, where you're working off the pressure from the campground faucet, or you have a portable water holding tank, where you can take water with you that you can fill up before you leave the trip, or once you get to your destination. And these two valves are going to be your main valves. And you get a little nice description sheet showing you for which operation is needed to have the valves. If your city water connection is going off the city water line, you want both of these set to off. So when you have the hose connected and you turn on the water, everything inside is working off of that pressure. If you want to fill your holding tank, the valve A, you want to move to the on position. So when you connect water here, instead of going to your water lines, it'll actually be going to your holding tank. And it does have an overflow. So if you start to see water shooting out from underneath, you know it's full, but you can also check your monitoring panel inside to see how full your tank is as well. Now when you want to use the water from your holding tank, it's called dry camping. Use water from the water tank to the fixtures. You want A to be off and B to be on. So now when you go inside and turn on your water pump, it'll suck from your tank and go to your fixtures to pressurize the system. If you need to winterize or sanitize, it has the instructions here how to do it. It'll draw fluid from the siphon hose, and that's what this is for. You can sanitize your tank by adding a bleach and water mixture to suck into the tank, and you fill it up, let it sit for 24 hours. You would have it set to on and off, and you would suck it through here by turning on your pump. When you want to winterize, you set both of these to off and stick your jug of antifreeze in here and turn on your pump, and it'll suck antifreeze into the system. This one will take about 2 to 3 gallons to winterize, but it can all be done right here. Before you do siphon antifreeze through the lines though, you do want to bypass the hot water tank. There are 2 valves on the back of the hot water tank. They're located directly behind here. They're always going to be on the back of the tank. It's kind of hard to see right now, but there's 2 valves. When they're pointed towards the tank, that's when water will go into it. But if they're pointed away from the tank, it's when it bypasses it for the winter. You can always refer to your owner's manual. It'll have instructions in there as well on how to do it. But all your valves are going to be directly behind here. And your siphon hose does have a valve connect to it as well to turn it on, just so it's not going to be sucking air when you're using one of the other features. But all that'll be done here. You have your outside shower, another outside outlet, cable and satellite connections. All your hoses will come up through the bottom. The other thing that's here is your tank flush. This only goes to your toilet tank. So after you drain your system, which we'll show you here in a minute, you have the option to add your water hose to here to pressurize the line going to the side of your tank, and it has a little nozzle that sprays water on the sidewalls to help flush everything out of your tank. And you just let it run for a few minutes just to kind of help get all the debris out. You don't have to use it, but I highly recommend using it just because it gets you a nice clean tank every time and helps clean off the sensors as well. So down below you're going to have handles to empty your holding tanks. You're going to have the black tank, which is usually indicated by the black handle for your toilet tank. The gray tank, indicated by the gray handle, for gray water system, which would be your sinks and your shower. You always want to attach the sewer hose, put it down your sewer, pull the black handle to be able to dump the contents of your black tank out. Once that's done, close that valve, pull the gray handle valve, because it's going to be more soapy water and kind of rinses out the piping and rinses out the hose at the end. And depending on how full they are, it could take a few minutes to empty. Whenever they are done though, make sure you close them back up before travel, just so any residual stuff will stay in the tank. If you're using your black tank flush, make sure to empty the tank first, drain everything out. Once it's drained out, then you can attach the hose to the flush, and make sure to leave this open so the water you're flushing inside has somewhere to go. Once you're done, you disconnect the water line to your flush, then you can go ahead and close the valve. But you always want to make sure to do the black one first, then save the gray one just to help kind of rinse everything out. While we're down here, I'll show you a couple drains. Your fresh tank, where you can take the potable water with you, the overflow is here. So if you see water shooting out of here, that means the tank is full. But if you're done using it and you want to empty the tank, you open this valve and that'll drain your tank. Also right here are low point drains for your water lines. You'll have a hot and a cold line. And just your water lines meet at one low spot, which would be here. If you want to drain just the water out of your lines, open these up and drain your water lines. The only times you really need to do that is when you're winterizing, just to get all the water out you can before adding antifreeze. Or say you get some bad smelly water sitting in there and you just want to drain everything out. You don't want it sitting inside. You can open those up and open up all the faucets inside to get out most of the water out of your system. So we'll talk about your water heater. All your controls are going to be on the inside. And this unit does work off electric being plugged into an outlet, or can operate on gas if you're out boondocking. This is a Suburban tank. This is a steel tank, porcelain lined. It does have a switch down at the bottom. It says on and off. On these models, you actually want to just leave them on all the time because you have a secondary switch on the inside to be able to operate everything. The only reason they put the switch there is if you don't have the switch on the inside, but KZ decided to put switches inside for convenience, so you don't even really have to mess with that switch. It is a 6-gallon tank. It takes about a half hour to get the temperature on gas, about an hour on electric. You can actually flip on both at the same time for faster recovery. At the bottom of your tank is your drain plug. Connected to your drain plug is an anode rod. This is a sacrificial rod, so the minerals inside the water will actually start eating away at this instead of damaging the inside of your tank. There's a steel rod in the center. Once you see the steel rod exposed about halfway through, you want to replace this. This could last you, a couple years. Could just be one per season you do it. It really depends on how hard the water is putting in and how much you use. You just want to keep an eye on it. You're always going to be taken out in the winter when you winterize to drain the tank, so it's just a good time to inspect it. But whenever you see that steel rod exposed halfway through, you want to make sure to replace it. Here's an old one that was fully eaten away. You want to make sure to replace it before this, because once it gets to this point, it's not going to eat away at this, it's going to eat away at your tank. So this steel rod here, just whenever you see about half of that exposed, it's a good time to replace it just to be safe. But people will start to get worried that this is eating away. That is exactly what it's supposed to do. This is supposed to get damaged instead of your tank being damaged. It does have some reset buttons up here. If the temperature were to get too hot, these would pop out and reset. One's for gas and one's electric for the thermostats. Press them in to reset them. It's not often they do that, but if you ever notice your hot water tank's not working, it's the first thing you want to check. You do have a pressure relief valve up here as well. If the pressure gets too hot in there, this will open up to relieve the pressure. This is actually a good way to tell if you have water in your tank. Because right now it is empty. If you were to put the plug back in, you want to make sure you do have water in the tank before you actually turn it on, so you don't damage anything inside. Good way to check is if you open this valve, if nothing comes out, you know you need to add some water. When you connect water to the system, this will be the first thing that fills up. So you want to make sure to go inside and open up a hot spigot, and it'll purge out the air. You'll hear it hissing for a little bit. Once solid water starts coming out, you know your hot water tank is full and it is safe to turn on. But again, all your controls are on the inside. Once you get that drain plug in for the season, it's filled up with water, you're good to go. You don't really have to come back out here unless you have an issue. Or if you want to drain the tank after every trip, which you don't have to do, but some people like to, just so they don't have stagnant water just sitting in their tank. And it does eat away more of your anode rod if you do leave water in there at all times. Here's the power cord for this unit. This unit does use a 50 amp power cord. It can't only go in one way. Can't be in upside down or twisted or anything. You'll see that there's notches in there to align it up. When the cord does go in, it goes in kind of an angle. Once it's seated, you actually turn it clockwise. It kind of locks into position. You have a weather guard. You twist down. Just make sure it keeps it nice and secure, but also keeps any debris or water from getting inside. Now, 50 amp connection is going to have the 4-prong plug. The most common at campgrounds are going to be 30. Most these days will have 50, 30, and 15 available there. We always want to double check before you go on your trip to make sure it is equipped with what you need. If they don't have 50 amp, you can get an adapter to drop this down to a 30 to be able to connect it to a 30 amp connection. You just want to be careful with that because now you're dropping the rating from 50 amp down to 30 amp. You don't want to be using everything inside all at once. You can still use like your air conditioner, but just be careful if you go to kick on your microwave and your air conditioner, or if you have 2 air conditioners, you want to only be running one at a time. But you do want to be cautious with that whenever you do drop the amperage down. But if you are plugged into a 50 amp outlet, you know, you're utilizing everything inside for what it's rated for. These cords are about 30 feet. We don't recommend using extension cords unless you absolutely have to. Most of the time, this is going to be long enough at any regular campground. Really, if you're just plugging in your house or something, you might be able to use an extension cord, and that's fine to do. But again, just limit your usage, because with using an extension cord, it does drop down the voltage, which could cause some issues and tripping some breakers. So you just want to make sure anytime you're using an adapter or an extension cord, you just limit what you're using inside. So for your rear stabilizer jacks, on this one there are electric jacks. Some might have manual ones, you just need to manually crank down or use an adapter on a drill. Some might have auto leveling. These are not auto leveling, these are just stabilizer jacks. Have an extend and retract control on the outside. For some reason you lose battery power, you want to get them up or down, you can still manually crank it with the same wrench that is used on the front landing gear. It's just going to be attached on the opposite side of the motor. So actually on the other side of the legs will be a way to manually crank it. When you go down with them, you just want to hit the ground and just let it add some pressure just to stop it from shaking around. Don't continue to hold down that button and try to lift it up. It'll draw too much amperage, you'll trip the breaker. They just stop it from shaking. They can't use it to level it. When you retract them, just hold the button down until they come to a stop. And then they're fully retracted. And these will work off a 12 volt. You don't have to be plugged into an outlet for this. These do work off a 12 volt. Same as like your slides, front landing gear, this, all that is 12 volts. So you can use all of this as you're dry camping. So this unit does come equipped with the backup camera. Some only come prepped with it. This one is already installed. If it only came prepped with it, you would just see a black mounting box without the camera. And being prepped means it is already pre-wired and already has the mount. So it's really just, you know, popping the camera in there, connecting a few wires, and then pairing it, and it's good to go. This one already has it installed, and they do adjust the tilt back up and down. You can get a little customization out of it, and it's a great feature to have. And these can also actually be on the whole time you're traveling. You don't have to be going in reverse. But to power the camera, the most important thing is they do tie into the wiring on your marker lights on the top. So you do have to have your running lights on to power your camera. So during the day, most running lights aren't on vehicles these days. During the day, they have sensors in them. So you have to manually turn it on for that to be powered during the day. But you could have it on the whole time you're traveling. Use it as an extra rear view mirror if you wanted to. Use it for backing up. It's a great feature to have. Some come equipped with it, and others it might be prepped for it, having the mount. Even if it doesn't have the mount, we can always install one afterwards, but it's a nice accessory to have. Most RVs these days are coming equipped with electric awnings. Very easy to use, just a toggle switch inside to extend and retract. What's nice about the electric awnings is you don't have to have them all the way out to be able to use them. Say there's a tree in your way, or maybe you just want a little coverage over the door or something, you can stop it halfway if you wanted to. Doesn't have to be all the way out or all the way in. When it is all the way out, you'll see a little valance drop down. Once you see that drop straight down, you want to make sure to let go of the button so it doesn't keep trying to roll up backwards. These do have pitch adjustments on them. The Soleras actually just have a pivot arm. You just pull it down and it'll stay in position. Just over time, it is possible for these to get a little loose and maybe they'll kind of sink down on their own. All you do is just tighten up the nut a little bit. Before you retract it, make sure to push these back up. And it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. As long as it's not a sharp angle, it'll straighten up once it gets back into place. You can drop either side. You know, if it's raining out, just to get some waterfall going off the other side so the water's just not pooling on top of the awning fabric itself. And right now, outside there's a little bit of wind, so you can kind of see it shaking around. That's probably one of the most important things about the awning, is you really want to pay attention to what the weather's going to be like. If there's high winds coming, storm coming, you know, pay attention what's going to happen throughout the night. You don't want this to be out during the day, you go to bed, big winds come and bounce around your awning throughout the night. So it's a good idea, just run it at night. They do make extra stabilizers you can attach to the ground, but in my opinion, it's just better to be safe than sorry. It just takes a few seconds to come in and out every day. Or even if you're leaving the campsite for the day, it's a good idea, just take it back in, because you never know what the weather's going to be like while you're gone. Right here's your main control center. It's going to have switches to be able to operate some of your appliances. You have and a couple lights too. You have your awning lights, your cap lights, to be able to turn on your water pump, your water heater on electric, and water heater on gas. And you do have your tank system, be able to tell you how full or empty your tanks are. So your gray tank is going to be your sinks and your shower. Right now, pressing the button down does read empty, letting you know your tank is empty. As you use it, it will work its way up to being full. Same with your black tank, which is going to be only your toilet. It'll read empty, 1/3, 2/3, and full as you use it. Once it gets up to full, or whenever you're done with your trip, that's when you want to empty your black tank. Fresh, that's going to be the potable water holding tank where you can take water with you. As you fill it up, it'll work up to being full, but as you use it, it'll deplete down to empty, so it'll tell you how much you have left. And battery goes off this low chart of LFGC, low, fair, good, charged. Right now, it's in the good position. It'll actually stay at the good position for about 80% of its life. When you are plugged into an outlet or traveling down the road, your battery will be getting a charge. That's when it'll be reading at the C level, because it will be getting a charge. But if you're only using your battery, you want to pay attention to how much life you have left on it. Once it gets down to fair, your lights might be a little dim, but everything will still operate. Once it gets down to low, that's when you want to make sure to get your battery recharged. All these red switches will actually have a little indicator to tell you if it's on or not. Your water heater can be on electric or gas, or both at the same time for faster recovery. When you turn on your water pump, you'll hear it make a humming noise, but once it reaches pressure, it'll actually turn off. So you just leave that switch on all the time, and as you open up your faucets and stuff, once the pressure is released, the pump will turn back on to bring back the pressure. Just above it, you'll have your slide out operation switches. This one has 3 slides. Other ones might have less. When you hold down the buttons for the living room ones in this one, you will hear a clutch engage when it is fully extended or fully retracted. A loud clicking noise. That does let you know it is all the way out or all the way in. You want to hear that noise in either direction. The other slide that you have is for your bedroom. It just has your in and out control. That's an in-wall system from Schwintek. When you're running that one out, you actually want to hold down the button until it comes to a stop, and an additional second or 2 after that, just to make sure it seats properly. You won't hear the clutch engaging on that one, but the control board will shut it down on its own. We want to make sure you hold that down until it comes to a stop, an additional second or 2 just to make sure it is fully seated. And the other one is for your awning, extend, and retract. This is your standard analog thermostat. It has the heat option, fan, and cooling. Heat is for your furnace. It does work off the propane system, and it runs off of your battery. So you can actually use heat while you're dry camping, boondocking. You know, if you're in somebody's backyard or campground where you don't have electric hookup, you still can use the furnace as long as you have propane and battery power. For your fan and cooling from your air conditioner, you do have to be plugged into an outlet for that to operate. Because right now, we're on battery right now, so you set it to it, won't even do anything. But you can set to your furnace, turn up the temperature, your furnace will kick on. Your furnace will turn on and off to maintain the temperature that you have listed, but for cooling and fan, you have 2 different speeds. If you have it set to auto, it'll turn on and off to maintain the temperature under cooling. But if you have the fan on low or high, what will happen is that the fan will stay on these speeds and the compressor turns on and off to maintain the temperature. So you have constant air circulation when you have it on the on position, but if you want it to shut on and off all the way down to maintain the temperature, you want it set to auto. And when you do run your furnace, like right now I turned it on but turned it back to off, it is still running. It does run for an additional minute to 90 seconds just to clear out the combustion chamber. So you don't want to fiddle with it and turn it on and off. You do set it to off and just wait an additional minute or 2 and it will eventually shut off on its own. This unit is equipped with the new EverChill refrigerator. This is a 12-volt refrigerator. So this will run strictly off your battery if you wanted to. It doesn't run off propane, but these are high amperage. So they typically run between 7 to 11 amps running off your battery. So if you're dry camping and you want to use your refrigerator, you want to make sure to get a larger battery bank, because you'll probably only last a day or 2 on one single battery with as much amperage as these pull. But they do cool a lot faster than a standard RV fridge. What's nice about this too is, say you're boondocking, you don't even want to use your fridge, you know, to be able to save some battery life, you just want to use it for lights or whatever, you do have the option to turn it off here under the control. So you can set the temperature up to 7, but if you set it all the way down to 0, we'll actually turn off the fridge so it's not running and draining your battery when you don't want it to. But these will operate off a 12 volt, so you can't have them on while you're traveling down the road. Just make sure the hot wire on your vehicle is in good condition, so this is getting a charge as it's using the battery, because they do use a lot of juice. But also while your RV is plugged into an outlet, that does charge the battery as well, which will be able to operate this at the same time. Just most importantly, if you're not using it, it's highly recommended just turning this to 0 just so it's not depleting your battery. And you do get some more temperature controls on the inside as well. Over here is your stovetop. Does have the spark igniter. Not all of them come equipped with that, but nowadays they do. So if you have the 5th one off to the side, you always want to turn it clockwise. Never turn it counterclockwise, you can actually break it. Set the dial to the flame setting to be able to light it. You can light one, you can light all 3 at one time if you wanted to. The front burner does get a little hotter than the back tube, so if you have a big pot or something, you want to use the front one. To light the oven, do the same thing by setting this to the pot, or the flame. This one you actually have to hold the button down as you turn the igniter. And after a few tries, it will send a flame back to the oven. Once the flame is lit, you can let go of the button, set it to the temperature, and it will turn on and off to maintain the temperature. When you're done, make sure you set it to the off position. It does have a glass stovetop cover. You want to make sure it is down during travel. You don't want that falling as you're traveling. And always make sure that these burners are cooled off before you ever put this down. You don't want that glass to be on top of that heat. Stovetop fan. You do have a lid on the outside you want to open up, so it'll actually suck up the air and shoot it outside. It's an exhaust fan, so you're not building up the heat and carbon dioxide inside. And your microwave, just like a standard household microwave, but it does only work when you're plugged into an outlet. It will not work off of your battery. So you have your entertainment set up here. Your TV does have a travel lock in place. It'll have a strap to release it. Not all of them have the same strap. Some might just have bungee cord or something a little different, but there's usually a way to lock it into place. Behind this TV there is more storage, and you get some more connections on the back as well. One thing that is already hooked up to the TV is going to be a DVD player. And that's going to be through here, which is your CD player. It does serve a few functions. CD, DVD, does have Bluetooth, has a USB and an auxiliary port, and it has a headphone jack as well. But yeah, if you put a DVD in here, it will come to your TV. It'll also be playing through your speakers on the ceiling. You do have 2 zones of speakers. You have zones 1 and 2. You can have just one on, you can have both on. But when you are watching a movie, it will be coming through these speakers. So you want to probably make sure your outside speakers are off. Like I said before, it does play CDs, and it has Bluetooth where you could stream music through that as well. Now the DVD player and CD player will work off of 12 volt coming off of your battery. So you don't have to be plugged into an outlet for that, but your TV, you do have to be plugged into an outlet to power your TV. And just below it is your fireplace. It has all the controls on the right side. It has a power button. You can change the temperature, change the lighting. It's got a few fun settings on there, and even has a sleep timer usually on them. And again, it does produce electric heat, which is real nice, but you do have to be plugged into an outlet for this. And they are kind of high amp draw. So you want to be careful using a lot of other things in the coach at once. You don't want to be tripping breakers using this. But these things are real great, especially for taking the chill off on a cold night. It isn't vented or vented throughout the camper. It only puts out heat here. So it'll warm up the living room pretty well, but it doesn't really make it up to the bedroom. So on colder nights, it is best to use the furnace where you'll be using your propane. But if you just want to kind of take the chill off, you don't want to waste propane, the electric fireplace is a great option to have. Now every RV is going to have a GFCI protected outlet. They are going to be in different locations, but typically they are located either in the bathroom or near the kitchen sink. They're going to be connected on the same circuit as anything near wet areas. So your bathroom, kitchen sink, and your outside outlets are all going to be on the same circuit. Some RVs, even on the bigger ones, might even have 2 GFCI outlets. But if they do trip, they are going to have a reset button where you can push in to reset. So if you ever notice you have a certain set of outlets that are not working, first thing you want to check is your GFCI and see if it needs reset. So you also have a TV up in the bedroom. Connected directly off the main coax on the TV in the bedroom is going to be your antenna booster. There's going to be a little faint green light in the back. When the green light is on, that means you're boosting the antenna signal. But if you're hooked up to cable or satellite on the exterior, you do want to make sure that that button is off because it kind of scrambles the signal. So you always just want to remember on for antenna, off for cable. And these bedroom TVs, on a lot of them from KZ, can actually just lift up. And it's the same bracket on the exterior of your camper. And you just unplug it, and unplug the coax. You can take it outside and set it up outside to be able to watch TV outside as well. But again, all of the coaxes are going to be connected. These are a different system directly to the main TV if you have satellite hookup. But your main cable and antenna come directly off of here. So if you have your TV set up outside and you notice your cable isn't working, you want to come up here and check that button. Most likely it just needs to come out. If you do want to use the antenna that's on the roof, you do have a directional one. You would want to turn and try to get a better signal. You want to push the button in on the side, be able to turn it. It does turn 360 degrees. Once you get a good signal coming in, you just let go of the button and it locks it into place so it won't turn. This can be in any position during travel as well. I always recommend just turn it until it stops just so it kind of locks it better into place. But it's a lot better than the old crank style they used to have on them. These you don't have to worry about putting down during travel. Just going over some safety items. Every RV is going to have a smoke detector that has a 9-volt battery on the ceiling. So you want to change that at least twice a year. Typically if you put one in the spring, it'll last you until fall when you're done for storage. If you ever hear a random beeping coming from your trailer, most likely it's that battery dying. Also, every RV is going to come equipped with a carbon monoxide and LP gas detector. Now those are going to be hardwired in. They are in different locations. A lot of times they're going to be by the front door, the kitchen sink, even by dinette tables. But those are hardwired in. So as long as you have power to the RV, those do function properly. And you're also going to get a fire extinguisher on every RV as well. Typically they are going to be right next to the entrance door. They are BC rated, so they're liquid and electrical. The little green button on top, just periodically you just want to press that down. As long as it pops back up, it still has good pressure inside. If you ever push that down and it doesn't pop up, you want to make sure to get it replaced because it lost the pressure. This is going to be your main distribution center. These are going to be located, again, in many different places in RVs. Typically, they aren't going to be hidden, though. You're going to have breakers for everything that runs off 120 volt when you're plugged into an outlet, just like a main breaker at a house. If there were to trip, make sure to turn it all the way off, flip it back on. 50 amp system's going to have 2 hot legs, and they're connected on this bridge here. So this would be your main kill switch to kill everything in the camper that runs off 120. A 30 amp rated system will just have one 30 amp breaker off to the side. Will be your main switch. You do also have 12 volt fuses for everything that runs off the 12 volt system. On this particular model, usually when you see the window on it, it has a light indicator. So if a fuse blows, the light right next to it will turn on to let you know exactly which fuse is blown. So you don't have to search through all of them, which is real nice. Most of them are going to be 15 amp fuses. You have a couple 20 amp down below, and these are standard blade fuses you can purchase at any auto parts stores. This does have a converter inside to when you're plugged into an outlet. Will send voltage to your battery to charge it as you're using it. If for some reason your battery's not getting a charge, you might even have a separate fuse on the back of this for your converter. You want to check that if your battery's not getting a charge while you're plugged in. One of the most important things about upkeep on an RV is the maintenance. Things to pay attention would be like your wheel bearing grease. You want to make sure to get their bearings repacked about every 12,000 miles or once a year, whatever comes first. Always make sure to maintain proper tire pressure. On the exterior, you want to make sure to check everything on the sides, like all your marker lights, vents, anything on the sides. They are going to have sealant going around them. Just keep an eye on it periodically. Make sure there's no openings or tears in the sealant, because that sealant's there to prevent water from getting in. And then most importantly is your roof. You want to get up on your roof at least twice a year, if not more, and just inspect everything. Everything up there is going to have sealant going around it, because all your vents are screwed down. They put a sealant on top of that. It's a lap sealant. to prevent water from getting in. And just from use over time, UV rays, maybe even tree branches might have scuffed it. It can peel that up, cause an opening, and if it is open, water can get inside when it rains. So you want to make sure to seal up any openings up there. Also inspect the rubber itself. It is very durable, but you might have a tree branch scrape it, scuff it. You just want to inspect it, make sure there's no openings in anything. Same with all your roof vents, skylight, stuff like that. Make sure like a branch hasn't landed on top of it, cracked it, things like that. But at least twice a year, it's a good idea to get up on your roof and inspect everything, make sure your sealant's in good condition. One of the other things that is important to keep up on is for travel, make sure everything's buttoned up. If you have loose dinette chairs, make sure they are strapped down. Same thing with recliners. Make sure all your windows are closed. I do recommend blinds being up for travel position. All your cabinet doors, things like that. Just make sure everything's nice, buttoned up tight. Another thing people tend to forget about are your roof vents that can open and close. You do want to make sure that those are down during travel. If they're open, winds aren't the sturdiest, they can kind of break off sometimes. Or if it begins to rain, you forget about it, you get it home, rain can just pour right down. Some are equipped with the fancier max air fans. This one actually does have a rain sensor on it, where if it rains, it will close, but only if you have battery power. So make sure your disconnect switch isn't off or anything. But you just want to keep an eye on it. This one does come with a remote control to be able to operate everything. You can even set temperature adjustments for when it turns on and off. But you do get manual controls as well to be able to close it manually if for some reason the remote doesn't work. But it's just real important to make sure all your vents are down during travel and make sure nothing gets in.